What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Stefan here from App Stuff, and we have some awesome new stuff for you here today. SwiftUI released a bunch of new amazing features in MapKit, and we're going to go ahead and check out what they are right now and go through a full tutorial on how to implement all this stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we hop into Xcode, guys, let's go ahead and check out a demo of the application so that we can see what we're going to be building. So we can see here that we just have a pretty straightforward map view in front of us, but there's going to be a couple awesome new features. So you guys will notice that down here in the bottom right, I have these like map controls that show up as I zoom in and out or change the rotation of my map view. You can see the compass down there. You can see this user location button. And another awesome feature that we get is this 3D map control. So we actually get all of this stuff out of the box from SwiftUI now, and it's super easy to implement, as we're going to see once we hop into the code. So another really great feature is we can search for nearby locations with like, a generic search term like Starbucks, and we can display a bunch of these locations here on the map view, and I can click on it and I can display this guy with like a sheet and some information about the location that I've selected. We also get this new awesome content unavailable view. If you guys select a different one, we get this awesome new look around feature API where I can click into this guy and actually get a look around of the location. And this is all coming straight from SwiftUI directly out of the box with the new MapKit API updates. So this is really amazing stuff, guys. We can also now get directions to a location with SwiftUI. That's something that we could not do before. And if I hit this X button, I can just clear all of that stuff out. I could X out of that and then clear this guy out here and just bring my map view back to where it started. So a bunch of new amazing features that we're going to be getting into how to build right now. So let's go ahead and hop into Xcode. Let's get started by creating a new Xcode project. It's going to be an iOS app, and we're just going to say like SwiftUI map tutorial or something like that. And let's go ahead and just create our project, guys. So let's go ahead and import MapKit up at the top, guys. And I'm going to paste some code in here that you guys should pause the video and type out. This is essentially just setting up our user location coordinate and the map view region that we're going to be looking at. So we're setting this user location to be in Miami, which is what we see here. And then we are creating a map view region that uses that user location with this latitudinal and longitudinal meters of like span. So if you adjust this, that will adjust how zoomed in or zoomed out the map view is. So next thing we're going to do is create a state property. And this is a new feature that SwiftUI introduced in the MapKit API, and it's called a camera position. So we're going to call this property camera position, and we're going to make it a map camera position, and we're going to set it equal to .region right here. And you guys will notice this creates a position that frames the given coordinate region. So think of this map camera position as sort of a camera looking down on the map view. And this is how we're going to specify the region that our camera is looking at. And you guys could imagine that that region could be really zoomed in, really zoomed out. We could look at different regions on a map. We're going to use this map camera position guide to do that. And something that's really cool is that because we created this user region property down here, that's an extension of MK coordinate region, we can just say .user region. And now we are just going to go into our body and create a map view. So we're going to say map position, and we're going to pass in this map camera position that we just created. Oops, sorry. And you guys will notice that that takes us right to the Miami location. Next up, guys, I want us to go over how we can add annotations to our map view and also customize those annotations. So let's go ahead and just open up some brackets, and I can create something called a marker. And I'm going to select this option with the title and coordinate, and we can just say like my location, and then use our user location guy that we have as an extension there. And we notice that shows up right away. So that's really cool, really simple. We can also customize this really easily with, a tint color. So I can make it maybe blue, and that will change the tint color of the annotation. And we can also pass in custom images now. So we can use like system images to replace this map pin image that we see there. So let's just go ahead and add a comma, say system image, and maybe do like a paper plane. And you guys will notice that we get a custom image showing up in our annotation there with a custom tint color. And that's super simple to add customization to our map annotations now. We can also create fully custom annotation views as well. So let's go over how to do that. So I'm just going to comment this out, and I'm going to create this annotation right here. And we're going to select this option, title key, coordinate, and content. And, you know, same old, we can just say like my location, use the user location, but now we can create a fully custom view. So I could create, you know, something like a Z stack and maybe make it like a circle with a frame of width and height of 100 by 100. And you guys will notice that we can get like a fully custom shape or content showing up on our map view as well. Let's go ahead and add like a color to it. So I could say like foreground style is .blue, .opacity 0.25 or something. And you guys could even add animations to this to create like custom regions in your map view. So this is really, really, really cool. Another really cool feature that we get out of the box now, guys, is we have this user annotation property that comes from the MapKit API that will display the current location of the user on the map. This, however, will only work if the user has granted access to look at their location while using the application. We're not going to be going over how to do that in this video. I have another video on the channel with how to request the user location and display it on the map view and stuff. You guys could take a look at that if you want. We are just going to be displaying this sort of custom annotation here to sort of mimic that user location blue dot. So I'm going to just go ahead and paste that in here. It's just a Z stack with a couple circles. And that's going to sort of mimic our user location for the purposes of this tutorial. But it is really nice that we get this user annotation guy straight out of the box. So next up, guys, what I want us to go over is how to add map controls to the application. So this is something that we also get with the updates to the MapKit API. We can go down here towards our closing bracket of the map, and we can say .map controls. Right, so we can go here and say like map compass, and you guys will notice that now if I were to like zoom in on or zoom out on my map view, you guys will see that compass showing up in the upper right hand corner automatically, which is super, super cool. We just get that out of the box, and we have a couple other really cool map controls as well. So we also have this map pitch button. So let's go ahead and check this out. And want to actually like move the map like with zooming and stuff, guys, just hold down the option key. And you guys will notice that it gives you like that pinch zoom effect, right? So if you guys just zoom in a lot, you guys will notice that now I have this option to look at the map in 3D, which is super, super cool. It'll give me the ability to view things in a 3-dimensional plane, and I can also toggle back to 2D. And, you know, we can also do our rotation, and our map compass will show up underneath that as well. So we get this out of the box, and that functionality is super cool. The last one that we can look at is our map user location button. So if the user had granted location access for this app, anytime they hit this button, it would just animate the map directly back to their user location, which is absolutely awesome. So nice that we just get all of this stuff out of the box ready to go, and we can implement it with just a couple lines of code. Next up, guys, I want us to go over how to implement this text field so that we can search for locations on the map like this. Just search for something like Starbucks and display a bunch of pins. So first thing I'm going to do is create a state property for our search text. So it's going to look like this, pretty straightforward. Search text equals a blank string. And then we're going to go down here and create an overlay to add this text field. So just give it an alignment of .top and open up some brackets, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the code I have for this text field. It's pretty straightforward, guys. Just a text field. It says search for location. We pass in the search text as a binding and add some modifiers to it to get that looking right. Now when we get our preview up and running, we should see that text field showing up at the top here. So how do we actually search for locations? Well, we're going to want to add this other modifier called onSubmit. So we're going to say onSubmit of, and then we can say .text. So anytime the user hits the search button when they're searching on it or like typing in a text field, this block of code will be executed. So that's pretty cool. Let's just go ahead and go here and say print search for locations with query, and pass in our search text to see that showing up. And I believe we actually have to run the application for this. So let's just go ahead and hit Command R or play to run the application and see if this is working. All right, guys, so we should see that text field showing up at the top. Let's just go ahead here and type in something like Starbucks and just hit the enter or return key on your keyboard, and you guys will see that print statement showing up there. If you wanted to see what it would actually look like with the keyboard, it would be just hitting this return key here. So that's how we, initiate our search. Now let's just go over how we can actually search for locations using this sort of natural language query that we have up here. So I'm just going to once again copy and paste this code in here, guys. The focus of this video is just to show you the new map view features, not really to go over how all of this stuff works. So we're just going to create an extension on our content view. Let me delete that line of code for now. And we're going to have this function called search places. It's going to be asynchronous, and we're just going to create this mklocalSearch.request, and we are going to specify the natural language query, and then we are going to store the results in this property here, and we need to create this results property up at the top of our code to ultimately display them on the map. So we're going to say @state private var results equals a blank array of MK map items. So we populate that guy right there, and that should get rid of all the errors in our code. Now we're just going to go back to this onSubmit modifier and call this function here whenever the user hits that enter key or return key. So we're going to say task await search places. And one more thing we need to do in this search places function, guys, is specify the search region. So we're going to say request dot region equals dot user region. So when you're doing this like local search request, you do have to specify the region that you want to execute the search on, which is just going to be our user region down here. So now we can just go back up inside of our map view, and we can create we can use a for loop to render each one of those annotations on our map using this results array. So we're just going to say for each results ID is \self item in. Then we're going to just go ahead and create a place mark. So we're going to say let place mark equal item.placemark. And then we are going to create a marker here, guys. And we are going to say the title is placemark.name. And because this is optional, let's just go ahead and give it a default value of blank. And then we're going to say placemark.coordinate here. So that should be all we have to do to render each one of those annotations that are coming back from our search results. So let's run our code and see if that bad boy is working. So with the app up and running, just go ahead and search for something like Starbucks, and you guys will notice that when I hit enter, it just automatically populates my map view with a bunch of those annotations coming back from those search results. Super, super cool. And we could also do something like, gas stations, and we'll notice that it removes all of the previous annotations and updates my map with the new search results. So this is super amazing, guys, super easy to work with and easy to use. Awesome new feature that is part of the MapKit API. So next up, I want us to go over how to select annotations. So we want to be able to select one of these guys and like maybe present a sheet with some information about it or get directions to that place. So let's go over how to do that now. We are going to create another state property up at the top, guys, to keep track of our selected map annotation. So we're going to say state private var map selection is an optional MK map item. And then in the initialization of our map view, we can pass this selection property in as a binding. So we can just say selection map selection. And now let's go ahead and run our code again. And that is literally all we have to do to enable map selection functionality. And we can perform certain actions once this map selection property changes. So let's just go ahead and check out what it looks like. So I can say like Starbucks. Let me zoom in and select that guy. You guys will notice that it selects that map annotation with a really cool animation there, which is so easy to implement, right? So if we want to trigger any sort of actions on that selection, guys, we can just go back down here and add another modifier, and we can say on change of map selection, old value, new value. Then we could do something like present a sheet here, which is what we're going to do. So if we go back to our other application, just to show you guys what this is going to look like, we can go ahead and click Starbucks, and it's going to show up with this awesome sheet here with some information about the location that we selected and some action buttons as well to either open it in Maps or get directions directly in our app. And then we're also going to have this amazing new look around feature, right? So if I were to click on this, it will enable this like awesome look around functionality. That is what the place actually looks like in real life. So cool. So let's go over how to implement this stuff now. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and create a new file, and we are going to call this location details view. So it's going to be a Swift UI view, and we're going to call it location details view. And the first thing we're going to do is create an input parameter as a binding. So we're going to say at binding var map selection is an MK map item. And I believe we have to import MapKit up at the top as well. So the reason we are passing that along here is because we are going to be using this selected map item to display information about that the map selection there. So whatever location we select, we can display information about that selected location. So here, let's just go ahead and fix our preview. We're going to say dot constant, oops, no, dot constant. Okay, so I'm just going to be copy and pasting most of this code here, guys. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time building out the UI for this. I really just want to show you how we can present some information once we select a location here. So I'm just going to add this VStack here, and it's going to just be some information about our location. We're going to have the name and the address of that place. So I think I need to add another bracket in here. And then we are also going to add like a close button. So inside of this HStack, I'm going to go ahead and add a spacer. And we're going to have a button here that's just this little X button that will dismiss our sheet for us. So we need another binding property here that's going to determine whether or not we are showing or hiding this sheet. So when we hit that button, it will toggle this property and ultimately dismiss that sheet. So now let's go here and say show.constant false. Okay, so this is good enough for now for our sheet. Let's just go over how we can actually present this sheet back in our content view. So we're going to go back here, and we are going to say dot sheet, and we're going to use this is presented option. So we need to have another state property up at the top. So we're going to say at state private var show details equals false. And then here we're going to pass that along as a binding. We're going to say show details. Content is going to be our location details view with this map selection and our show property. Location details view, map selection, and show. So here we're going to pass along our map selection. Let's see, map selection, and then here we're going to pass along show details. And then when our map selection changes, we are going to say show details equals new value is not equal to nil. So basically this is saying, guys, that whenever we select some new item, if the new value is not nil, we're going to want to show the details. But for example, it could be nil if I just select something on my map view that is like within the map view itself, but not an annotation. So that would mean the new value is nil, and we don't want to show details, right? We only want to show details if we're selecting an actual annotation there. So now let's just go ahead and add some modifiers to this. We're going to say dot presentation detents is dot height, and it's going to be 340. Oops, 340. And then we need to add one more thing here. Give me 1 second, guys, to find this. Then we are going to say dot presentation background interaction is dot enabled up through dot height of 340. So what this is going to do, guys, is it's going to still allow me to interact with my map view once this sheet is presented. So even though the sheet is getting presented over top of this view, you can still enable interaction up to a certain height for this sheet here, which is super, super cool. This is an awesome feature. And then we're going to say dot presentation corner radius is 12. So let's go ahead and run our code once again and see if this is working. So basically when we select an annotation now, guys, this block is going to trigger here, right? And it's going to toggle this show details property, and this sheet, the presentation is tied to that show details property. Then it's going to show our location details view with some information about our selected annotation. So we're going to say Starbucks, bam, and we notice that that doesn't look super pretty yet, but it's doing what we want it to do, right? It's presenting us with that sheet. And we can dismiss it by either sliding down or hitting this X button. So everything there is working beautifully. Let's just go ahead and continue to add on to that. So next up, what I want us to do, guys, is add this awesome look around scene functionality. So this is actually going to be super, super easy to implement. Let's just go back into our location details view, and we are going to create a state property here. So we're going to say state private var look around scene, which is going to be an optional MK look around scene. And then we are just going to go within this VStack, and I'm going to add some code here. So within my VStack, we're going to go ahead and say if let scene equals look around scene. Then we are just going to generate this look around preview with that scene and specify the height, the corner radius, and the padding. And if it's unavailable, we have this awesome new content unavailable view class that SwiftUI gives us out of the box now. So it's just going to ask us for an image and a text, and it will generate some sort of empty content view, right? Which is absolutely awesome. So how do we actually get this look around view? We actually have to execute a function to search for that. So I'm going to go here and add this extension in here, guys. It's going to be called fetch look around preview. And basically we're going to say if we have this map selection, we're going to reset our look around scene to start, and then we are going to execute this task with an MK look around scene request from the map selection, and then set our property up at the top with this guy right here. So pretty straightforward, nothing super fancy here. It's just fetching the information that we need to render this look around preview. Let's just go ahead and see where we have to call this function now. And to accomplish that, guys, all we are going to do is find that closing bracket of our VStack, and we are going to say dot on appear. We want to fetch the look around preview, and we also want to say dot on change of our map selection, fetch our look around preview. So the reason we do this, guys, is because the first time this sheet appears, we want to fetch the look around preview. Then anytime the map selection property changes, like say we select another guy, we want to fetch the look around preview with the updated information. If I'm just going to add some print statements here to show you guys what I'm talking about. This is a pretty important concept to understand. I'm going to say print debug did call on appear, and then we are going to go and add a print statement to our on change modifier and say did call on change. So let's go ahead and run our code and see when these print statements come up. So we'll notice the first time the sheet launches, we're not going to get this on change modifier print statement. So let's go ahead and just search for Starbucks. Click on that guy, and you guys notice that the only thing that runs is that on appear modifier. We don't call on change, but if I were to click another annotation, then we see that we get the on change modifier executing there. So it's important to have both of these modifiers here, guys, to get this working as expected. And I also just added some padding here on this VStack to get this looking a little bit nicer. Next up, guys, we are going to go over how to add those two action buttons down here to open this in our actual Maps app, and also get directions with a polyline in our application here. All right, guys, so I have some code that I'm once again just going to paste in here. So within our VStack, you guys could go ahead and pause the video and type this stuff out. We're just going to create an HStack with two buttons that is going to have one for opening this in the actual Maps app, and another for actually getting directions to that location, with like adding a polyline to this map, which we're going to go over how to do in just a second. One thing I do want to do is add another binding property here called get directions. So we're going to go up here and say at binding var get directions, which is a Boolean, and then we need to update our preview. So say get directions dot constant false. And basically, guys, this is going to be a binding property that we're going to toggle on and off if we actually hit that get directions button and want to generate a polyline to that location. But to open this in Maps, it's actually going to be super simple. We get this new function here with the updates to the API, where we can just call open in Maps and it will directly open up the Maps app. So let's go ahead and just go back to our content view, and we need to add this state property for getting our directions equals false, and then we need to pass that along to our location details view. So we're going to say get directions and pass that along as a binding. And once again, guys, we're going to go over how to implement that in just a second. I just want to see if these buttons are showing up and if we can open that location information in the actual Maps app, which is going to be pretty cool. So once again, we will search for Starbucks, select that guy, and we can see our two buttons showing up down here at the bottom. And if I click open in Maps, you guys will notice that it takes me directly over to the Maps application, which is awesome. And it's going to display that information in my map view as well. So super cool feature, guys. If you just want to get all of this extra information in there, that's a lot more difficult to get in your app itself. You can just open that stuff up in the Maps app. But we're also going to go over now how to actually generate a polyline and get directions to a location in our app here. So let's go over how to do that now. So first thing we're going to do, guys, is add a couple properties up at the top here, and I'm going to go over what each one of these is responsible for. So just go ahead and pause the video and add these properties as well. So we're going to have a state property to keep track of whether or not we are displaying a route, like if a polyline is on the map. We're going to have a state property for the route itself, and then we're just going to have another one to keep track of our route destination. And we'll go over the purpose of this guy in a little bit. But these two are the most important ones for now. We want to know if we're displaying a route, and we want a property for the route itself. So basically in our map, guys, we're just going to be able to say if let route, then we're going to say map polyline, which is a new feature that we get in the new updated MapKit API. We can just say route.polyline, and then we can also style this guy a little bit. We can say dot stroke dot blue line width is like 6 or 7. Let's do 6. So basically, guys, this is a new feature we get with the updates in the MapKit API. We did not have this before. We could not add polylines using SwiftUI. At least to my knowledge, you had to use the UI view representable stuff and use the UIKit MapKit framework. But now we don't have to do that. So let's actually go over how to fetch that route and ultimately display it on the screen, guys. So I'm just going to, once again, copy this function that I have here. You guys can pause the video and type this out. We're just going to add a function here called fetch route. We're going to say, hey, if we have the map selection, then we need to generate this directions request, much like this local search request that we did. We set the source, which is our user location, and then the destination will obviously be the place that we select. Then we initialize this task. We asynchronously get our directions. We populate our route and our route destination properties. And then with this snappy animation, this is another new feature. We have this .snappy animation, which is really nice. We set these properties up here, and this is super important as well. We update our camera position here with this map rect, and we'll go over all of that in just a little bit. Let's just go over how we can now call this function to ultimately get this route and display it on the screen. So we want to say .onChange of get directions, old value, new value. And then we want to say if new value is true, then we are going to call fetch route. So basically, guys, when this get directions guide changes, this is coming from our location details view. We're going to toggle that to true, and that's a binding property, so it's going to update this get directions guy here, and we're saying, hey, if that is true, then we want to fetch that route and ultimately display it on our map view. So let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. There's going to be one more thing that we need to update in order to get this to work as expected, but we'll go over that in just a second. So let's see, search for Starbucks, and let's click on this guy, and let's click directions. So you guys will notice that that zooms in beautifully, right? And that's because we're updating our camera position, guys. That's where that comes back into play. So the zoom is a little bit off. I hope they fix that, right? It like ends up just a little bit too zoomed in, so I hope they update that after the beta release, or for the actual release of the Xcode 15. But basically what we're doing here, guys, is we're setting this camera position to be equal to the polylines bounding map rect. So this polyline has its own map rect definition, which is like a rectangle with dimensions that we can specify that contains that polyline. And then we update the camera position using this .rect option here and pass in the rectangle. So the camera position for the map will zoom in exactly as much as it needs to display the things that I want it to on my map. So one more thing we can do here, guys, is we might want to remove all of the other annotations on the map when we're displaying a route. So we can basically go up here and go back to our for loop. And let me just go ahead and cut this code here, and I can say if route displaying and else, right? So if we're not displaying a route, we want to show everything. So, but if we are displaying a route, we only want to show one annotation, and it needs to be equal to the destination we're going to, right? So I'm going to say if item equals map destination, or what did we call that property? Route destination. Then we are going to only display that single map marker. So let's go ahead and run this and see if that logic gets us what we want. And that should just about wrap it up. So let's see, we're going to say Starbucks, hit that, and then I'm going to say get directions. And you guys will notice it removes all of my other map annotations and only displays this stuff on the map. And that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Bunch of awesome new features released in the updates to the MapKit API. Hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. A lot more content on the way. Thanks for watching once again, guys. Peace out.